My hypothesis for success in life is ultimately two parts. One is continuing to say yes in spite of everything else telling you no, and then two is actually believing it. When I was in college, my father got real short with me about all the video games I was playing in my spare time. So I made a deal with him. If I could get and sustain great grades, even while playing said games, he could no longer justify telling me not to play as much as I did. Tell you what, I've always really loved video games, so of course I got A's in my classes that semester. In fact, I graduated with a bachelor's in computer science with a 3.85 GPA or something like that. And you can bet I did it all while playing video games. And it isn't like I'm some mega genius. I coasted through high school, and then my first year in college absolutely crippled me because I wasn't used to, putting in any real effort. So it's not like I flew through homework and whatnot. I also had to diligently study to make it work. In fact, just a year or so prior to this, I was almost entirely convinced that I was just too stupid to graduate from college. Which, by the way, you can absolutely graduate college through grinding, but I don't really recommend it. But I came back, tentatively dipped my toes in, and out of nowhere I got this confidence like, yep, I can do this. I can do this while playing video games, no problem. It probably helped that I returned to college doing part-time for the first semester, but this trend continued well into my junior and senior year. I was like, sure, I have to work a bit more, but I can eat my cake and have it too. And as is evidenced by my GPA, I did pretty well doing exactly that. On the flip side, I lost and could not maintain a job search for a new job because I couldn't say yes. I fully believe the odds were stacked against me. And unfortunately, some measure of confidence is kind of what you need these days to actually get a job. You're expected to do extra work, have extracurricular activities, and on top of it, present yourself well when the time comes. Personally, I think it's the hardest to say yes when it comes to people because their no's tend to echo the crippled self-esteem I suffered when I was younger and am still working on. So what I mean by saying yes is essentially taking spite to the next level. Yes, you can be happy in spite of your circumstances. Yes, you can make you can make a business work as an entrepreneur. Yes, you really can do it this time, even if you failed the past 20 times, brain. If you're anything like I am, the world will constantly tell you in every shape and form that what you're doing won't work. Either by people saying no up front, or your work not being recognized, or by experts telling you, no, you can't do this. Now, I'm not saying you should go trying to will yourself to defy gravity, unless you're really into sci-fi tech, in which case, absolutely go for it. I'm also not saying to dismiss every person trying to give you sound advice. Rather, take into consideration why their no might be a no. I've been doing a lot of studying over my years, and if you're like me, you've noticed that there are a lot of contradicting videos out there. Niche down, be broader, focus on mindset, focus on this one strategy. Cold calling is dead. Cold calling is alive and well. The question becomes, who is right? The answer is they're probably both right for different reasons. And most people probably don't like that answer. They like something definitive. But I think this really just further proves the point that you can make it work with both strategies, as long as you keep saying yes. But again, I'm no financial professional, so disclaimer, don't sue me. And I think this is why people say choose your friends wisely, because if they're optimistic, resourceful entrepreneurs, then then they essentially work as backup for your own mindset. They won't comfort you if you feel like you're failing. They'll point out all the ways you're thriving, how you're so close to making it work out. Me, of course, I run on spite, so I still have the same friends I made like 6 years ago or something. So, what that means for me is I don't have a safety net in that particular regard because my values are like, fuck you, I'll drag them up with me, which is a lot easier said than done. So, what that means is that I have to work extra hard to be self sufficient and act as my own backup. And you might think that sounds real difficult. You might think that sounds really difficult. But what that essentially boils down to is having more opportunities for me to practice my self esteem and self confidence. So, can I make money from this Let's Play series, even though it's so vastly different from what's trending these days? I think so. I think people will like listening to someone who is calm, open-minded, and very encouraging about exploring difficult topics. Minecraft adds that extra touch of familiarity that makes it easier to absorb, and I think a lot of people who play Minecraft will benefit from this because Minecraft is a game for creatives and creatives want to create. Minecraft is a great platform. Minecraft is a great platform for practicing those skills before you jump off and take the plunge into trying it in real life, aka entrepreneurship. And even if you don't ultimately want to start a business at all, it's still a great series for talking about some tricky topics. I like to play the devil's advocate in those cases because preaching to the choir doesn't do much good. I think providing another perspective in a neutral and non-hostile light, however, tends to shine a light on problems and can make people more thoughtful about how to approach these subjects with others. And if I had to guess, this is probably why a lot of courses that are sold around creating a certain kind of business for yourself don't work for the majority of purchasers. You didn't come up with the idea, so instead you have to be convinced of its value and that it's worth pursuing, and your success is probably largely based on how well you're able to be convinced that you're providing real value to others. So I'll give you an example of something I failed at recently: cold calling for life insurance. Now, I want to say I am terrible at cold calling, and I think most people are because we're decent humans who don't want to pester other people. And that is exactly why I failed. Because no matter which way you sliced it, most people did not want and probably did not need life insurance, despite what my upline tried to tell me. Unfortunately, this meant both a lot of wasted time talking to ineligible leads and very likely perpetuating the harmful stereotype of people trying to take hard-earned money from you. Now, if I had rock-solid beliefs that the value I provided to a family far outweighed the trouble I caused for others, and that the money I would get would also be put into things to help move humanity in the right direction, then I could have stuck it out. A lot of people are able to make it in the cold calling world. For me personally, I think the only cold calling I could ever do is if I was literally giving out free money over the phone, or if I was genuinely offering to help people with their specific problems. So, kind of like a therapist who both markets via cold calling, but also being free for those people. But not exactly, because it wouldn't necessarily be just therapy, so more like general consultant, assistant, kinda, I guess. I don't know, another thought for another day. So, how does this apply to you, and how can you use it to get ahead in the world? I personally work on this belief of mine every single day because in being an entrepreneur, it's sort of inevitable. Because if you aren't innovating, you're copying, and that can really only get you so far, I think, before you're forced to start innovating or be left in the dust. So this is how I personally work on this skill of being stubbornly persistent. The easiest way to start this is by exercising it on the daily actions of your life that you would like to improve. In other words, you say yes in spite of your doubts and insecurity and anxiety saying no. Example, I've not been sleeping great lately, and I am very much tempted to sleep in the middle of the day after waking up. It's especially tempting when my mental game isn't at its top either, so I'm much more susceptible to feeling and thinking bad things in general. So I say to myself, yes, I can stay awake and feel happy and empowered even though I'm sleepy. I was thinking about taking a nap a few hours ago, and now I've sold $80 with my art and I'm halfway through this script. And how it works for me is I keep repeating that affirmation internally whenever the negative thoughts and feelings pop up. I might feel very tempted to sleep, but I know it probably isn't the best for my body to be getting these 2-hour sleep sessions. And I do know that willing myself against it is actually helping me to build resilience against inner pressures. Plus, focusing on positivity and being empowered and working the best I can to encourage those feelings in spite of my sleepiness helps me to establish a new normal for my sleepy state. So if I'm in this state again in the future, when my body is going to be like, okay, this is how the state was the last time you were sleepy, but you were really fighting it, so I guess I should be more like this. And I find that it is so much easier to train my body in that state because I was doing the hard work of starting those connections when I first decided on change. Now, if you find it super duper hard to just completely stop when you're used to taking naps throughout the day, don't start by just depriving yourself unless you've conditioned yourself well to be particularly tough when it comes to changing habits. You might want to start by saying, okay, I'll stay up 5 minutes longer than I usually do, and then go to sleep. And with repetition, it typically starts to become easier and easier, meaning you don't feel as uncomfortable while doing this new behavior, and you don't have all these thoughts associated with taking your nap hounding you just as much. Or, go for something else. If you want to start walking outside regularly, get used to putting your shoes on and standing outside for a minute. And you say, that's great, but how do I achieve that second part, which is believing it will actually work? And that's why I also encourage you to start small. Because these mini tasks are pretty trivial to complete if you choose them correctly, and then it's sort of like learning anything else. You start building on the foundation you've established to reach higher and higher goals until you eventually become as neurotic as me and try to start your own business in an incredibly saturated market. Though in my opinion, most markets usually are pretty saturated already, which is why you need this skill in the first place, because you gotta slog through the swamp for a bit before your body's strong enough to handle it and you can actually use your strength to your advantage. Just my opinion. If you want to check out some resources on this, I recommend David Bayer's channel as always, link in the description below, as well as the beautiful book Atomic Habits, which really emphasizes this bite-sized approach and has more ideas and inspiration on how to make new habits easy to create and how to make bad habits easier to break. That's all for now. Doodles!